But it comes back again to mindset, Andre.
Yeah.
When and especially when you talk about immigrants, when immigrants come wherever they go, they come with a particular mindset that we are coming to build a life.
Mm-hmm.
And come what may, we are going to build a life, because even if you have to go back home at some point in time, you're not going back to the condition that you left. And so
Mm.
therefore it is imperative that you get it done by whatever means necessary.
Man, doing pretty good. I woke up from a 5 minute nap.
Oh wow, I
Had
tell
to
you.
get it in before. I was like, man, I was running around today, doing a few things, and I was like, let me just close my eyes for at least 5 minutes before we start this show. Excuse me, my hair's a little wacky, but
Yeah, it's
but
raining here in Jamaica, man.
yeah, yeah. You doing okay?
Yeah, we've just been having a lot of rain.
Oh wow. Is
It's
it
been
like monsoon or like the hurricane
Yeah,
season?
we're actually at the end of the hurricane period. This month is the end of the hurricane period.
Okay, okay, yeah.
We have been usually about November we get a lot of rain, so we have been having flooding and all kind of stuff since about 2 weeks.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
But hey, you're smiling. You're good,
yeah,
and you're
man. I'm definitely I'm alive.
yeah,
I'm
man,
alive.
man. It's good to see you. It's good to see
Yes,
you. So, are you ready to speak your life?
yes, I am.
All right, let's get it. So, first question that we have is just take us back to that moment where you don't have to tell us the year you're born if you're not comfortable, but take us back to that year or that era and give us kind of like the journey from the day you were born into knowing why you were born.
Mhm.
So I know that's a lot to cover, but we man, we want to hear your story. We want to kind of get those details and how we've learned to be connected to who Paul Blake is now and today.
Well, I would begin by saying my life has been a journey. I mean, I grew up, as you know, on the island of Jamaica. Um, Typical, what I call a dysfunctional family, which I think is one of the reasons why I am actually in the field that I am in. Because my parents got divorced when I was 15 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
I grew up around a lot of dysfunction. I grew up with low self-esteem issues. Grew up not knowing exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I mean, I was somewhat of a lost child, if you want to put it that way. So
Yeah.
so even during in going into my teenage years, I really didn't have any idea as to what I really wanted to do with my life. So I basically was just floating, floating through life for a bit. Even up into my early 20s, I was clueless basically of what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my turning point came in 1998 when I actually became a Christian in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for me was one of the turning points of my life, because my minister, I believe, would have given me a lot of encouragement and set me on the path to where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's part of my journey as an individual. So in 1998, when I became a Christian, I mean, I decided that I wanted to use my life and my experience as a means of
Mm-hmm.
helping persons, and especially young persons, young men, especially 'cause I deal a lot with young men in terms of
Yeah.
mentorship and so. So I started on that journey. I ended up studying counseling and psychology. I have a master's in counseling and psychology,
Mm-hmm.
and as I am a trained minister, um,
Mm-hmm.
have my first degree. My two first degrees are in theology and religious studies. And
Yep.
so, it set me on that path. And then I ended up in writing. I decided to put my journey into book
Mm-hmm.
form. And out of that experience, I have today 3 books. Actually, I have 5 because I've just published 2 more.
Mm.
So I am, on the journey of helping
Man.
persons to really maximize their life, maximize their existence, to
Yeah.
find their passion and purpose. Because one of my mantra is that I believe that all of us are here for a purpose. We are here because God placed us here on earth to fulfill the purpose that He has given to us. And the unfortunate thing is that many persons don't know how to find the purpose that God placed them here for. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I believe that all of us must be driven by a
Yeah.
passion to do something. I don't think that we are here just to exist.
Yeah.
I believe that after we have left this earth, we are all supposed to make a mark, just for being alive, and that is part of who I am as a person. And I've always said to persons that if what I'm doing doesn't even put any money in my pocket, I would have still lived a very satisfied life, knowing that I have helped to change somebody's life. And that for me it makes the journey worthwhile. Makes the journey
Mm-hmm.
worthwhile. Mhm.
Yeah. 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 And so you've done a lot of things. You've got into ministry. You've been all over the place doing business. You've
Mhm.
been, you studied, you've got your degrees, and now you are a writer, you are a speaker, and you have
Mhm.
there's a lot of things attached to who you are. And
Yes.
walk us through that moment where you realize that this is what I really want to do. Like the speaking thing, this writing thing, using my words to encourage other people, using my words to inspire people. Walk us through that moment.
I describe that moment this way. This is actually the only thing that I would do every single day, getting up and not getting paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I wasn't getting paid, I would still get up and do it every single day and give it my all.
Mm-hmm.
I love to see people's lives transformed. There is no greater feeling than standing before an audience, and you are speaking and you see somebody in the audience just get it. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a light just goes on in their face when you say something, and it hits home.
Mm-hmm.
And because it hits home, then immediately what you do is that you begin to start changing them. And for me, that is my what I call my oh moment, where
Mm-hmm.
you look at somebody who might, has been in the same place that I was, not being sure of who they are, suffering even from some of the same things that I would have suffered from, like low self-esteem and low self-worth. And just to know that you are able to touch them in such a way that they begin to discover who they are, right?
Mm.
Is almost as if somebody who has a burden carrying, and because of something that you say, they begin to shed the burden that has been on their shoulders for a while. And because of the words that you speak, they begin to move towards finding passion and purpose. And that for me is very satisfactory. Yeah, I mean, this is the only thing that I've done. I mean, I am 47 years old. So
Mhm,
I have many jobs. I've been working since I was 18 years old. So
mhm,
I have changed jobs many times. I've changed career path many times. And where I am now is the only thing that I would do for the rest of my life without no complaints. Even if I'm not getting paid the money that I'm worth, I'm fine with that. But changing people's life is where it's at, because somebody, well, was able to tap into my life and help me to discover my purpose. And I think because of that, the onus is on me to give back as much as I can.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. So when growing up, you had like a mentor, like in high school or college?
No, my mentor actually is my minister, my first
Mm,
minister when I became a Christian, was Carl Powell.
okay.
He was the one that first said to me, outside of my parents, that I had something great in me. And
Mm-hmm.
he was the one that fostered that. He was the one that watered it and allowed it to grow
Yeah.
by even allowing me to do some of the things that I thought that I couldn't do. I mean, I remember that he was the first one that put me around the pulpit to preach.
Wow.
And I remember I spent about 2 weeks writing a sermon.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to the pulpit, the sermon was done in 5 minutes. And
Wow.
I was standing at the pulpit not knowing what to say after 5 minutes. And,
Like, I'm supposed to be going for 40 more minutes, but I don't know what else to say.
so I was stuck, and he was the one that said, keep going, because you're doing well. And he says 5 minutes is where it starts.
Mm-hmm.
And he nurtured it, and he told me what to do, what not to do. And he was the one that told me that he thought that I was good at dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
So so I think I would say he's my biggest mentor. Even
Good.
to even today, right up to today, he's still my mentor. And I've
Wow.
I've left that congregation over 20 years now. And
Mm.
he's still somebody that I call and bounce things off and ask him advice. So he, for me, is my mentor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know, with your name and the lineage you have with your son, I think it's perfect that you're in ministry. Your name is Paul. Your son's name
Mhm.
is Timothy, and the
Yeah, that
relationship
was
is.
that was done actually deliberately. Racket and myself, we wanted a name for Timothy to reflect,
Mm-hmm.
something positive, to reflect a godly character. And
Mm-hmm.
because my name was Paul, we decided that Timothy was fitting. And so it is
Mm-hmm.
also a part of helping him to chart his own direction in terms of his life, because his name means something.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually something that I strongly believe in, that people, you ought to name your children with names that reflect who you want
Mm.
them.
Yeah, I definitely believe in that. I think there's a lot of parents that just they're like, oh, what's popular or who's my favorite artist?
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah, true.
as long as the name is not Hitler, we're good. Like we'll name it anything with it. So
Yeah, man,
I think people
your
were,
name is supposed to reflect who you want to be.
yeah. I definitely I think the last time I checked, Andre means masculine. So
Mhm.
I think I've been living out that
Yes.
masculinity. I think I've been living up
And
to
in
that.
and in, and in today's world, that has to be defined more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So so yeah, name is important, and the way that we carry ourselves is also important because
Mhm.
um you know there's expectation that we have a lot of times when we're from birth to growing up as a child. And remind me if you're where your placement is in your like amongst your siblings. Are you like the
I'm
oldest?
I'm actually the first of five.
First of all, okay, yeah. So
I have
I
three
thought you
three
were the oldest.
brothers. Yeah.
Especially as us being the oldest, we have a lot of expectations placed on
Yes.
us. So having a good name and having those expectations, it can be an encouragement to doing great things, or
Hmm.
sometimes for others it can be overwhelming and it could be a burden for
Yeah.
all the
True.
pressure that they face by having a good name or having uh, been the first child born or the only child born.
Mhm.
So that's a lot. So no pressure on Timothy.
No, I think that my life experience has helped me to be a better parent, a better father, because
Hmm.
I am able to to not be unrealistic towards,
Hmm.
in terms of nurturing him. As a matter of fact, as far as I'm concerned, my vision for Timothy is for him to be the best that what he wants to be. And
Hmm.
it is, yeah, I can help to steer him in a direction, but
Yeah.
I will never force him to do that which he doesn't want to do. Because
Hmm.
I think that we are placed here on earth to find our own path. And my duty as a parent is to help to nurture him, not to force him to do something.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
mean, anything that he wants to do, as long as it's not immoral or illegal, I'm fine.
That's funny. Yeah, yeah, that's and even if it is immoral or illegal, hey, at the end of the day, when he's 18,
Yeah, it's not.
that's a
I mean,
decision he's had to make for
at the end of
himself.
the day, it's his choice. He
Yeah,
has to
yeah,
live.
that's
He
that's
has to
that's
live with
the
the consequences of his actions.
that's the choice of free will that you know as children are given, and as we as children of God are given, we are all given free will to do what we please. And I think that's the beautiful thing. I think free will is a beautiful thing because there's people who choose to commit crimes or do those kinds of things, but then the beautiful part about it is that there is a redemption that
Hmm.
people can, turn their lives around, and there's free will to also stay on a good path to do, helpful things in society, in the community, and look to, use your gifts, your talents,
That's
so
right.
that other people can be inspired and be encouraged to get out of like whatever place they're in. Maybe they're in a really bad place in life. Maybe they're having depression, and maybe a word that came from Paul, maybe that was in your book, or maybe something that you
Mhm.
spoke was something that uplifted them. It was all because you chose this path that nobody forced you, not even God Himself. He allowed you to choose, but it's something that you were passionate about, and somebody felt
Mhm.
that love that you displayed in the words that you wrote or said, and were able to be pricked or just stricken by those things.
Yeah, yeah. That's the beauty of humanity in terms of our
Hmm.
choices.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, wherever we end up,
Hmm.
it's a matter of choice. You could be born in the worst of conditions. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you have to die there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could also be born in the best of conditions. It doesn't mean that you have to stay there either. So at the
Hmm.
end of the day, choice is important, and I strongly believe in in mindset. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
I believe that one of the reasons why many persons don't maximize life,
Hmm.
um, it has a lot to do with mindset. Uh,
Hmm.
if you tell yourself that you can't do something, then by that's how it will turn out. You will never be able to move from one place to the other if you keep telling yourself that you can't do something. And we have so many examples of persons who have defied the odds
Hmm.
and have swum against the current and have made something of themselves and become people of purpose. And when you look at their circumstances probably would have dictated something else.
Hmm.
When you look at their life experience, their circumstances, where what they have attained, it really doesn't add up. And when you look at them, a lot of it has to do with their mindset. So
Hmm.
even in my writing, I speak a lot about mindset because
Wow.
I believe in the power of the mind.
Hmm.
The mind is the most powerful tool that we have at our disposal, and it is
Yeah,
actually it's also our worst enemy.
it is. That is
Mindset is important.
nothing but truth.
All of my writings, every writing that I've done, I speak a lot about mindset because I
Mm.
know I know what the power of the mind can achieve.
Mm. Mm. Wow. Wow. Going back to what you're talking about, we were talking about like, it doesn't matter where you're born. It matters about what you decide and your decisions and choices in life and where you end up. I always heard this quote that said, "Born looking like your daddy, dying looking like your decisions." And I'm like, "Woo, poetry."
Yeah,
Oh
true.
man.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's
Yeah.
powerful stuff. That's
Yeah.
powerful stuff. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah,
You know?
because, it doesn't matter, you could be, born out of poverty, and you can end up a successful person. You
That's
could be
right.
born maybe in a palace and end up in the slums.
That's right.
So you just don't know. And because of that, you can't predict what life brings, pandemic, death, whatever. You can't predict these things, but it's really about how you react, how you respond to things. That's what really counts. And And that again goes back to mindset. It goes back to decisions and choices that you talked about earlier. And I think a lot of people out here are just maybe they are maybe they're living in fear because maybe they had a moment of failure before, or maybe they, I don't know, they sought out to do something, they had a goal or something in mind, a dream, and then something got in their way and they just didn't know how to get around it. And
To those persons,
how
I,
would you how
you
would
know,
you address those people? That's what I
I
meant
would
to
just
ask.
one question. One question. Show me one person in this world who has ever had success who has never failed.
Hmm.
Every successful person in this world has failed at something. Failure is a part of life,
Yeah.
right? And that is one of the problems that we have in the world today, especially in raising children.
Mm-hmm.
We are raising a generation of children. Parents are telling their children that failure is not a part of life, that they must not fail at anything. And this is
Mm.
one of the reasons why when they feel, when you have persons with high IQs and they're always at the top of the game, the first
Mm.
time they feel their whole world crumbles because
Wow.
they are not used to. But failure is a part of life.
Yeah.
As long as you live in this world, you are going to fail. There's nobody in this world who is good at everything,
Mm.
right? So you have, and I heard a quote says that you must fail your way to success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Because
That's
and
true.
it's not the problem is not failing. The problem is never failing. The problem is what you do after you have failed.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can choose to become a victim of your circumstances, or you can choose to use the circumstance to propel you. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I here am I at, I didn't do well in school.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to high school, I didn't do very well. When I left high school, I didn't do very well. I mean,
Yeah.
I could not matriculate into college after I left high school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wasn't qualified, but
Wow.
I decided along the way that I'm not going to allow my circumstances to dictate my success.
Yeah.
Here am I today, years after. I mean, I have two first degrees, working on two masters.
Mm.
Uh, I could have just laid by the wayside and decided that I'm not going any further. I mean, this is just I'm just a failure.
Mm.
I could have,
Yeah.
I could have made that choice. I could have said to myself that, you know, all the people before me, I am not as good as they are. They are in a much
Mm-hmm.
better place than I, better opportunities. I could have made all of the excuses, but I chose not to do that. And
Mm.
and you'll find that persons who refuse to accept their circumstances will always find a way to propel themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't control the circumstances of our lives in terms of how we are born. We have no control over that.
Wow.
But you don't have to dwell there, right?
Wow.
There's always a choice that we have, and we can't we can't allow the excuses to become part of who we are. One of the words that I don't use is can't.
Mm-hmm.
Can't for me is a bad word,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
can't has never achieved anything. The minute
Mm.
you tell yourself that you can't,
Mm-hmm.
then you have defeated everything else.
Yeah. That's
And
true.
we have heard so many stories of persons who refuse to say, that I'm going to give up, because giving up is not an option.
Nope.
Until the day that we die, there's always somewhere else to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, this, you know, I think there's a lot of people out there that, that, I think people when they live in different countries, they have like maybe different mindsets. And I think, and I've observed immigrants who come to America, and I observe Americans who grow up in America, born and raised. And I
Mhm.
think there's a difference in education and appreciation for it. And the reason why I say that, and there's like some study I read, it was talking about like the like the average immigrant has more education, and they tend to work in higher salary jobs than people
Mm-hmm.
who already were born and raised here in America. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's notable to kind of keep in mind, because when people maybe come from a place that doesn't have as much, or they don't have as many resources, and they
Mm-hmm.
come to a place like America, a developed nation, a place where everybody wants to, pursue their American dream, they are incentivized to be able to work harder, get, educated and all that stuff, because maybe they don't want to go back to where they came from, and the
True.
back is against the wall. They have no other options. Like, if you're a refugee coming from the Middle East, you don't want to go back to where you came from. You will do
That's
everything
right.
to make sure you get all the best grades in school. You'll do everything your best to make sure that business works out, even if you fail so many times. And it's just cool to see and hear all these success stories left and right. And it's just like, wow, you start to appreciate things. I think I think more so sometimes when you're coming from the outside in as a foreigner, when you come from somewhere that, you know, people perceive as having less than, or not having as much. I think you shouldn't discount people like that, because they they have a hunger and a desire that people who already have those resources may not have, and they might outwork you.
And so that is why you will always have these persons, I mean, excelling in different areas. And when you look at their story sometimes, I mean, their story is not colorful. I mean, their story is full of struggles, full of heartaches, full of disappointments. But
Hmm.
when you have a mindset that you are moving towards a particular goal, then there's
Yeah.
always something to push you regardless of what happens. And that's a part of, in terms of when we talk about success, success must be driven by motivation. There has to be something that motivates you. There must be something greater than even yourself sometimes that is going to motivate you. And so a lot of persons who find themselves in this space where they are unable to move forward, a lot of times it is that they have nothing that is motivating them.
Mm.
So part of mindset has to do with finding that which motivates you, right? And
Hmm.
it comes back again, and I think Jesus says it very, very well. Jesus tells us that whatever, it is not what goes into a man that defiles him, but what comes out. And he wasn't talking about food. That leads to the mindset, right?
Mm.
Because and as I said earlier, our minds can either be our greatest benefactor or our worst enemy.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, man, that's so true. And man, if you were looking back, and what would you tell your 20-year-old self? What was some advice you would give if you were 20 years old again? I know
Oh, wow.
that's a very deep question, and it requires a lot of thought. But
It's an interesting question because it's something that I think about when from time to time. If
hmm
if I could revisit my 20-year-old self, I would tell my 20-year-old self that there's absolutely nothing that you can't achieve.
mm,
And I have lived that,
hmm
right? All of the doubts and struggles that I would have had in the past, and look at where I am now with the kind of success that I've had. I wish at times I was my 20-year-old self now. You know, if I could be 20 and have the kind of life experience that I have now, then probably some of the mistakes that I would have made, I wouldn't have. Because again, you know, at 47, you're much older and wiser. And you go back to, even going back to my 20-year-old self. I mean, there are some things that I would have considered so very important at 20 that for me now is of absolutely no importance.
Yeah.
At 20, I thought the world was going to end if I didn't achieve some things. And a lot of those things had to do with buying cars and houses and having girls and all of that. None of that, that's not important. No, for me, at 47 years old, for me, the most important thing for me right now is to live what I call an abundant life, and that is absent of material things. I want to wake up every day, and at the end of each day, I want to know that I have lived my best life. So even if I don't wait to see another day, I would have lived a complete life today by just simply doing the stuff that I love to do. It's not about money, and I'm not suggesting that money is not important, because money is important to everybody. But if you know, money is just an addition.
Yeah.
Right? It's just something that is added. You know, it's like putting the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, seeing change in people's lives, adding some kind of good to the world that is around you, giving people hope. You know, I want to spend my life giving people hope, because again, we live in a very hopeless world, and you know, many persons, and even in the pandemic that we are having now, there are a lot of persons who have just given up hope.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
almost sure that at the end of this year, when we do further research, I can, you know, probably the suicide and depression rate is going to, you know, skyrocket.
It already.
A lot of persons are giving up hope. Were never prepared for what is happening. And a part of mindset is that you have to be prepared to live with change. Change, change is one of the only things that is constant in this world. Right?
Yeah.
Nothing stays the same. You know, and I remember I preached a sermon a few months ago, and one of the points I made is that, you know, I think I preached that in about September, and COVID in Jamaica started around March, and I asked the question, who would have thought that September we would have been confined to our houses? Who would have thought that September we would have, you know, had to work from home and there's no school? Nobody anticipated this kind of change. Who would have thought that a pandemic, a virus could have basically bring the whole world to a standstill? The world that is just busy going on and on and on and on and on virtually came to a standstill. Who would have known that? Right? And so we have to be prepared for change. We don't know what is going to happen, and so therefore it means that we have to spend our days maximizing our lives, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So, you know, make sure that you live the best life today, because you see, part of our problem, we keep on planning to do better tomorrow. You know, I'm going to put on pursuing my dreams for tomorrow. You know, I'm going to wait until I have enough money to get a good education. I'm going to wait until I can put all my resources together. Yeah, that may never happen. You know how many persons die with all that planning?
Oh man, yeah. There's a lot, you know, you probably heard of Les Brown, and
No, my favorite motivational.
yeah, man. He be dropping gems. He talks about how, like, man, the graveyard is full of the greatest
Yeah,
resources that,
yes.
or
Isn't
talent,
the
skills
graveyard?
that ever were. Like, his people who are potential doctors, lawyers, engineers, you know, authors, speakers, whatever, people who they had that gift inside of them, they never pursued it.
Yes.
They never went after it. They wanted to wait for the perfect time. They want to wait for, oh, let me get my money up. Let me save this.
It
When
never
I get
happens,
married,
Andre.
when I do this.
It never happens. It never happens. More than half of the world's population is going to die with potential.
Mm, wow.
More than half of the world's population will die with potential,
Yeah.
because they never sought opportunity to tap into who they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's wow. It's a heavy thing to think about. That motivates me to do whatever I can, even if it's little by little, every single day, work on something towards
That's
my
right.
purpose, even if it's
You
a
know,
little something. It doesn't have to be the biggest,
I
greatest
wrote,
step.
yeah, yeah, true. I wrote an article some months ago, um, speaking about investing in other people's lives. And you see it a lot on social media. we spend so much of our time investing in other people's lives, looking at what other people are doing, what other people are achieving, admiring other people's greatness and all of that. We spend our waking moments doing stuff like that. What about us? Aren't we as great as the people that we admire? I mean, aren't we as gifted as the people that we lift up on a pedestal? Why
Hmm.
should I waste my entire existence admiring somebody on social? And I am not suggesting that you must not lift up people and big them up. Fine, that's all right.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't want to spend my waking moments simply, trolling through social media and looking at how good other people are. What about my own greatness? What about my own passion, my own potential? I am here for a purpose just like everybody else.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think social media has gotten people caught up, and they, I don't know, they just, it feels fun. There's a dopamine rush that you get when you're scrolling through Instagram, when you're getting likes on your pictures. But at the same time, it's uh I think it's very important that people focus. And one of my favorite musicians is Kendrick Lamar, and
Mhm.
he's somebody that is probably one of the best. I'd say right now he's the best rapper alive, in my opinion. I think he's the best rapper alive, and not
Mhm.
just just I look at him as a poet, a true poet. And I know as a person
Mhm.
who, you appreciate, good poetry and words like that. Um, he talked about in one of the interviews, he talked about like, you know, why he doesn't get on social media. People always ask him, man, you should look at this. Oh, look at this beautiful girl over here. Look at this and this. He's like, all his friends are trying to distract him. He's like, no, man. He's like, I gotta stay focused on this album I'm creating. Like, I gotta make the best that it can be. Maybe I'll get on social media after it's done, but right now I'm staying focused. And so that's how we have to be whenever we're making that next book, or we're making music, or doing that next thing that we're doing. That's how we stay focused, because social media
That's
is
right.
it
True,
can be a
true.
distraction, big distraction, detractor from your dreams.
One of the, and coming from the perspective of a counselor, one of the things that I have realized over the years is that people some glorified lives on social media that are far from reality.
Mm,
Everybody's life looks better on social media.
mm-hmm.
Everybody's life looks more glamorous. Like they have it all put together while on, so because guess what, social media is a false impression, because what you do is that you post the best of everything. That's not reality.
Mm,
That's far
mm,
from reality, right?
mm-mm.
So if persons are going to use social media as a benchmark for living a quality life, then I can tell you they're in for bitter disappointment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody, I think it has the potential to be a talented facade
That's
artist.
right.
So I think
And social media is, I think, it's a wonderful tool. I think it's
no, no,
one
no.
of the, I mean,
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's I definitely agree. You have to
it
use it.
is a wonderful tool, but just as with everything in life, I mean,
Hmm.
everything has to be done in moderation.
Yeah, there's extremes to everything. There's extremes. Yeah, I agree with that. There's extremes to everything, because if you're, if you have a business and you're promoting it, then you have to use social media to maybe get new customers. So
That's right.
or connect with friends that you haven't seen in a while. So it does have its uses. And but I think overall, I would say more often than not, I think people as human beings who are we're prone to the negative. We're prone towards addiction, towards things, and abuse of things. I think I
Hmm.
think more so than not, people tend to get addicted in a negative way, and get attached more so than they use it for positive things.
Yeah.
If I'm just like judging it from an overall perspective, and I could be totally wrong, but that's just, I don't know, my perspective or my view.
Have you ever realized that a good portion of the things that were created for our enjoyment, we have ended up using it to our own detriment?
Yeah.
And so social media is no different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just fanning the flames. It's
Yeah,
just fanning the flames that are already there. So,
that's right. That's right.
but yeah, yeah, but like I said, it's a tool. Everybody, we use it, and I think it has its uses, and then also you have to be mindful of how much you use it.
Yeah, that's
But
right. That's right. That's right.
yeah, yeah, and so you know, being from, we talked about like business and stuff like that. Like, what would you say have been, or what are some general challenges that you face? Because you're my first Jamaican
Mhm,
interview guest here, and
mhm.
what would you say are some of the challenges that are unique to Jamaica that maybe you face as a business owner that would, be different from a challenge that we would face here in America as a business owner?
I don't think there's much different. The challenges are right across the board. Some of
Mm,
the challenges that I would have faced as a business owner, first and foremost, persons who don't want to pay you what you're worth, and I think that's a
mm,
challenge right across the board. And
mm,
I've had to struggle with that because some of the times, as practitioners, we doubt ourselves in terms of whether or not we can charge people for what we do, or should we charge them that amount. And I've
mm,
actually had to get business coaching where that is concerned, because sometimes you know that you're worth this amount of money, but you kind of reluctant to ask a client for it because you think that they will say that it is too much and all of that. I've had to learn that, because at the end of the day, what you do is actually you're selling yourself short,
mm,
and you
mm.
you end up you end up suffering in the long run. And
Wow.
when I look at what I've had to pay in terms of getting people to do work for me, I mean, I have had to pay dearly. And the persons
Mm.
that I employ to do stuff for me are not afraid of charging me.
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
they will charge they will charge what they're worth. And so,
Hmm.
I have to look at it in that way, that if somebody is going to charge me market value for the work that they do for me, then I must not be afraid to also charge the
Hmm.
value for what I produce. So, I am slowly outgrowing that.
Mm.
You also have, you have there are many challenges. You have the challenges sometimes because you're a self-employed person. Is one thing getting paid at the end of the month because you're doing a 9 to 5 job. Working
Mm.
for yourself means that you're responsible for everything. I mean,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
if the business fails, you can't. There's nobody to blame.
yeah. But
So you
yourself.
have to be you have to be your accountant. You have to produce what, and so it can it
Hmm.
can be taxing. One somebody told me some time ago that for the person who does business for themselves, the business never closes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just
Some people get 9 to 5. Some
regular
people
a
get
regular
twenty four
nine to
seven.
five job. Yeah, at 5 o'clock you are finished and you go home and you look forward to starting another day. The person who does it for themselves, you are always on call. There is no rest.
Yeah,
Because again, if you don't work, you don't get paid.
yeah, yeah. That's very
So
true.
that's it. And so it those and sometimes challenges like those, it can really give you a low spirit sometimes, because and it affects your creativity also.
Hmm.
When it makes you not being able to produce sometimes as much as you want to produce. And so, as I think, balance is very important. You can't allow yourself to become so overwhelmed, that because again, for persons like me in my field,
Hmm.
we are creative agents. And so,
Yeah.
we all always have to be creating. So one of the things that I do is that I try to outsource as much as possible some of the things that I can't do for myself. And I've said it to my wife many times. I prefer to pay somebody to do something that I know that they are good at doing it, rather than me trying to reinvent the wheel. And sometimes I get frustrated and
Mm.
I want to give up, because I will stick to what I do best.
Yeah.
Let me put it that way. I'll stick to what. there are some things that I can do. I can start the process, but for the most part, I mean, I prefer to outsource and allow other persons to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, outsources is so important. I've learned that recently because it's just it's so helpful. Like, you can get money back, but you can't get time back. So sometimes I think it's one of those things where you're like,
That's
oh
right.
man, do I have the budget? Do I have the money to spend this money for somebody else to do this job? But you better make it happen. You better make it happen.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of going in
I
and
guess
out.
one of the important things is that
Oh, okay, there we go.
I don't know if it's my instability. Mhm.
Okay.
One of the important things that I've learned being in business for myself
Mm-hmm.
is that you must have a good team of persons around you, persons who you can draw on, and that is why networking is so important in business. When you're
Yeah.
in business for yourself, your network is very, very important. And you must be, I tell persons who are in business that you must be willing to give as much as you want to get. You
Mm,
can't be in business for yourself and be a selfish person,
yeah.
because you're always going to depend on somebody to do something. And so whenever it comes, when your time comes, you must be willing to give as much as you want to receive.
Mm, yeah. That's true. And yeah, we all have to, you know, do our best to go above and beyond to provide value for people, especially as entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, if you are doing what you're doing for just money, you're gonna fail. If you're doing it
Hmm.
because you really want to
That's right.
provide
True. Very,
value
very,
for
very true.
people,
Very
yeah,
true.
yeah,
Very
yeah.
true.
I think you have to watch your intentions. Why am I going into this? What am I doing this for? And if you do
Hmm.
it where you want to change people's lives, then they will pay you the money. Don't worry. Just make sure that you do whatever you're doing to the
Yeah,
best of your ability.
I have learned that principle that as entrepreneurs, whatever field that we are in, we must always give our best, because again, people pay for quality stuff. As
Yeah.
long as you're producing quality, I mean, everybody will not pay for it, but you have a niche that you can meet the need, and people will pay for quality stuff. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that's part of the reality that we live in.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So, what would you say? In this whole podcast, we just basically talk about like life as a house, looking at life
Mhm.
like a house, and you know, there's the foundation, there's that part of the house that people can't see from the
Mhm.
outside looking in, but it's the most important part. And what would you say will be one of the foundational pillars of your house, your life, that you could share with us?
Belief in self.
Mm-hmm.
That for me is above all things, because if you don't believe that you can do it, nobody else is going to believe you. And if you create a smoke screen, people are able to see through the smoke screen.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to, and which is why self esteem and self-worth is very important. You have to believe in any product that you're going to sell, even outside, a salesman, whatever product that you're going to sell, you have to
Mm-hmm.
first believe in the product. Because
Yeah.
if you don't believe in the product, I am sure that you'll not be able to convince anybody else to believe in it, no matter how good you are.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
you know you have to believe in what you're about, believe in what you are selling, believe in what you are producing.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to change lives, you have to first believe that you can change even your own life, right?
Mm.
Because a part of what with people, if people don't see something, you know affecting a change in your own life, they are not really going to believe that you're able to help them. Right? So
Yeah.
they must see it working in your life first, and in order to convince them. And
Yeah.
so when I and this is why your outsourcing our story is important. You know, a part of that foundation is owning your story, and telling that story as it is. I mean, as raw as it is. Don't hide it. Don't hide the experience, because it is not about coloring your story to make it attractive to people. It is about telling people about the reality of who you are, what are your life experiences, what is the pain that you have gone through, what are the struggles that you have had to deal with, because it makes you more authentic when people can relate to who you are as an individual. um,
Mm-hmm.
that is how the story begins to affect change in their own lives. So you have to believe. Belief is important.
Yeah.
Yourself. Very,
Awesome.
very important.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And that brings us into our transition into the last segment of the podcast, which is question of the day. So
Hmm.
today is obviously November the 3rd, 2020, and today is the US election day. Now, you don't have to give your opinion. You don't have to give who you who you believe in, but who do you think is just gonna win?
um, to be honest,
Not necessarily who you want to win, but who you
no,
think is gonna win.
based on what I'm seeing, it would not surprise me if Donald Trump wins again.
Hmm.
It wouldn't be surprising for me.
Okay. Okay.
Honestly, don't want that to happen, because I have several problems. Some of them I will not hear, but part of my
Hmm.
greatest challenge, I don't understand when you have a world leader who constantly dehumanizes people.
Hmm.
I have a problem with that. I,
Hmm.
I don't I don't care how much you turn the economy around. I don't care what you have done that is good, as you are someone who constantly dehumanizes people. That is where I draw the line. And for me, that is what he represents. I mean, I have heard some of the comments that he have made, and I cringe when
Hmm.
I hear some of those comments. I
Wow.
cringe sometimes when I hear how he relates to women. I
Wow.
cringe when I hear sometimes how he relates to persons who are physically challenged.
Yeah.
I cringe when I hear him relate to persons who are considered minorities. I mean, that for me, it is the worst part of humanity for me.
Hmm.
So that
Yeah.
is my fear. So I mean, he might have done some good things, but
Hmm.
um, I can't see through that part of it. That's just me. And anywhere in the world where you have people who constantly dehumanize other people, um,
Hmm.
I can't. I have a problem. It bothers me. It bothers me.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 So I guess we'll see what happens either tonight or tomorrow or whenever they count the votes, and hopefully not take this to the Supreme Court. But we'll just have to sit back and see what happens. But anyways, thank you so much for being on the show. Be sure, guys, to follow Paul Blake, and you can find him on social media: Facebook, Instagram, and I think you have your link on there that shows where they can purchase the book, right? Amazon and stuff like that.
Yes, Amazon, draft to draft.
Hmm.
Um, you can find it on all of those platforms. There are several platforms that's on.
Yeah, yeah. We'll be leaving a link below in the description for everybody to check that out. Be sure to get your copy of one of his books. And thank you guys for tuning in. We whether
Here we
you're on
are. Yeah.
Spotify. Oh, there we go. There we go.
So
That
this one is 40 Days to Abundant Living. I want you to see it.
okay. Yes,
Right, and this one is Words to Inspire Volume 1. This is the
I
first
have
one
that
that I
one.
wrote.
Yeah.
And here's another one that fell. This one is Words to Inspire Volume 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
And I have two just published 2 weeks ago. I published two. One of them is entitled Lessons from a Father to His Son, Unlocking
Mm-hmm.
Proverbs. And that's a book
Wow.
that is geared towards mentoring young men. And
That's
There's
Awesome.
another one that is called My Story, Journey to Purpose, and that one is about me.
Man. So I already got one of your books. I'm gonna have to get some more. So man, thanks for sharing with us. And everybody out there, whether you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever platform you're on, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Be sure to get one of his books, get a copy, follow him on social media. And thank you guys for tuning in. If you connected with anything, you have any questions, comments, or just want to connect with us on social media, hit us up at Speak Your LYFE, because life without your Y is meaningless. Find us on any platform, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you on the next episode.